So welcome to the special meeting, the May 3rd, 2023 special meeting of the San Rafael BPAC. It's our first in-person / hybrid meeting and first time we've had any in-person in quite a while. So welcome to those of you online. And we'll hope this format works well. And if I guess when people have comments to make at appropriate time, you can raise your hand and then you'll be allowed to speak. And we'll see how it goes. So I guess we'll first start with the attendance. And so we have member Mooney
present.
And I'm sorry, Sylvan, I don't know your last name.
Member Freer.
Member Freyer. And I'm Barry Bergman. So we have a quorum. And then we have our other two members, Mark, who's allegedly on his way. And you said Anne, or is Anne the alternate?
Anne's the alternate. We have two marks.
Two marks. Right. Okay. Next item is approval of the meeting minutes from the regular February 8th meeting. Do we have any comments on the minutes? I don't have any comments.
They were pretty sparse. Looks good.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that. Okay. I'll take a vote. All in favor? We have the minutes approved. Next, we have any comments from the public for items not on the agenda. Is there any members of the public who wish to speak on any items not on the agenda? If so, please raise your hand. There's a hand.
I'm going to call on Will.
Hi, all. This is Warren Wells, Policy and Plan Director for the Marin County Bicycle Coalition. I just wanted to flag something that, I know there's been some discussion at for this committee about looking at an update of the San Rafael Bicycle Master Plan, and I was reviewing it, and I was looking at the timelines that are in the last master plan passed in 2018, I believe, and I guess there's a lot of kind of things in there. It's a great plan. There's a lot of things in there that were recommended that I don't believe have yet either been studied or passed. I'm not going to go through all of them, but that there is in there a suggestion that status updates be provided to the council at certain periods in like the 5 years after implementation. And I was curious if any of those status updates have happened, if we have heard from staff what progress we have made on those policies in the bike plan since its passage. All right, thanks so much.
Is that something we can respond to? Do you
What's that?
I don't know if you wanted to say anything in response to the question, or
You had a question in regards to the status.
On the one bicycle master plan. I'll be happy to. The plan has changed since the last time we talked. It has always been on our radar.
well, I think he's talking about recommendations in the updates to council for recommendations that were in the plan from last time.
I see. Without updating the plan itself.
So I know what he's talking about here. In the tracking progress section, says conduct regular progress reports and updates of plan.
Oh,
Give them to city council in 2020, 22, 2024, etc. I don't believe as a committee, we have not done any of those. And I think
We have not done
do
it.
that.
We have not done it. And I think the CIP is a form of the update of where our priorities are in regards to all transportation projects and not just the bicycle pedestrian master plan. But let's continue talking and, maybe through the CIP and is this something that is on the agenda that we need to make an?
It's not, no, it was
it's
just, he
not.
had a comment,
So-
I was just,
Let's take it into consideration and let's see after we were done with the discussion, maybe we want to do something about it as a committee.
For future agenda items, this is something that I actually was planning to talk about anyway.
Sounds good.
When we get to there. We'll talk
Okay.
about it.
Sounds good, yeah.
okay, thanks, Lauren. Are there any other comments from the public on items not on the agenda? See Kate.
Good evening. I have a comment. I've noticed that this month's, and I'm sorry, I just joined, so I don't know if this comment has already been made, but I noticed that this month the minutes are very sparse. And I found the previous month's minutes to be helpful when I wasn't able to attend the meeting, to be able to read who commented during public comment and what the topic was. They were just a little more, there was more meat to it. And this month's agenda or minutes, I'm sorry, are almost read like the agenda. And I would request as a member of the public that you would include the level of detail that you did in the earlier months. I'm sorry, I don't have the month, but the earlier months minutes, because it's really helpful for the public who want to participate. Thank you.
And last chance, any other comments from the public? Okay. Next item is ad hoc committee updates. First, North-South Greenway.
Yeah, so I could give updates on the North-South Greenway. That's a committee that was made. That's Ann and I that are that ad hoc committee currently. There's been a lot of progress all these last months when we're talking about the North-South Greenway. So I think I'll start from the south and move to the north. And I wrote these down so I could send them to you for your records if you want. But starting all the way at the south with the Golden Gate Bridge District, MCBC has launched a big campaign to push the Bridge District to budget money for a safety study on Alexander Avenue. You could read about all the information they've got there. It's the most dangerous intersection by a whole bunch of metrics. And so they're collecting petitions for that and asking organizations to sign to their request. Moving towards Sausalito, the plan to reconfigure Bridgeway between Golden Gate Market and the ferry landing has hit some opposition, with some members of the council urging that the road be preserved as is, even though, as I reported last time, the city won both planning and construction funding there. So that contract to initiate to the plan came to the Sausalito City Council, but it was sent back for them to renegotiate that contract to include a no-build alternative. So that is something to keep an eye on there. In Mill Valley, the Parks has developed 30% designs for the project to realign the Mill Valley Sausalito pathway between the Manzanita Park and Ride and the pathway's intersection with Almonte Boulevard. That's in response to sea level rise, that project. The big issue, I think the big thing for people who care about the North-South Greenway to really pay attention to is how to safely get under 101 right there. And also what's going on by Tam Junction. Here in San Rafael, I actually attended the SMART budget meeting today because they gave us, they are recommending allocating just over $700,000 for the Puerto Suelo Hill project. Sometimes we called it the San Rafael Connection. So the history of that is that came in the beginning of 2021. We started looking at that pretty closely, and the committee drafted a letter and sent it to Mayor Kate, who then powerfully advocated for that in front of the smart board, got a feasibility study done. And so now this is the next step in the process. So that's pretty great. In their presentation, they were also focused on all the money that's going to other pathways on the North-South Greenway in Marin, including the construction of the McGinnis Parkway to the Smith Ranch Road, which is fully designed and is going to start in the fall and is supposed to be complete in early 2024. So that's great news for us here. In Novato, we talked last time about the bike path that's behind Costco, and then there was one small missing section in between Hannah Ranch Road. So that is funded and in design. It should go into construction of fall 2024 for that one. And then the final one that sort of hits close to home for me is the Redwood slide. So Redwood Boulevard had a slide in March 22nd, 6 weeks ago, along the frontage road to 101. That is the part of the smart pathway that up until 6 weeks ago was my daily bike ride to work. There's no alternative to get through that area at all. Caltrans put a 17.4 mile detour around there.
This is north of San Marin.
This is in between, north of San Marin, right in between Novato and Petaluma. That's the only way to safely get through that area. I've tried the others, not safe. Unfortunately, there's just really probably no access for bikes for the next 2 months. So I'm trying to put pressure on Caltrans to get a bike shuttle going, but I have been unsuccessful with that, and I have been not riding my bike nearly as much as I'd like. That's it for my North-South Greenway updates.
Can I have a question?
Yeah.
The $700,000 part of the SMART project, has it been designated for what? Is it
To get to shovel ready.
shovel ready?
The
I see.
Puertos Suelos. We did the feasibility study first. And so it's continuing to plan that.
And
That's
SMART is going to continue to lead that?
Yes, smart is funded.
I
Yeah,
just want
SMART
to
is
make sure
funded.
that it's, who's on first here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that was pretty unique because that was not in the original plan that Smart had historically,
Right.
so that sort of like came from us
Right.
with, remember Patrick at WTB TAM was very
Yes.
involved in that and
Big win.
CBC,
Big
win.
and it's a big win. So that's a huge benefit.
Great.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Park and Rec Master Plan, as we were discussing before, that's
Yes, so I could speak to that because I was our representative on that committee. So that passed, that went through city council, not this most recent one, but the one before, I think. So we can take that off, that ad hoc committee, we can take off for now. I will recommend starting another ad hoc committee whenever the trails and open space planning session comes through, because I think it would be important for this committee to help make sure we get bikes to the start of those trails also. But for now, that could be off for future agenda items.
Vision Zero. Nothing has been happening in Vision Zero, and I know we're still kind of in a holding pattern, waiting. I mean, April, it sounds like you had some updates from what's happening with TAM, because that's there. We're kind of waiting for, or unless one of you have some other comments about it.
Yeah, they're working on the road safety plan, and that includes an aspect of Vision Zero in it. So they're currently working on that with the county.
So we're kind of waiting for TAM to develop a strategy for moving forward on this and figuring out how the city is going to be part of that or complement that.
Yeah, so Nat's actually is our representative for Sainer Fell, because they want someone from each of some key agencies. So they'll be able to provide an update. They just had a very brief meeting, just kind of kick it off. So that could be a regular update. I don't know how frequent the meetings are, but yeah, if you want to add that to the agenda to learn more after those meetings.
I think the plan is to have a meeting every month. And then they get those updates.
And that's a staff level committee.
Staff level, certain personnel from city.
Okay.
Present.
And do they have a approximate time frame for when they're going to actually, we said they've started on this, on updating the safety
Sorry
study?
to kind of to get everyone on the same page. As of right now, it's just discussion, planning, future meetings and all that. So until we dive in further, a little more detail, have much to share.
I heard it's within the year, they're gonna, because the plan has to be updated in order for all of the agencies to get grant funding.
Right.
So they're definitely actively working on it. I don't have the exact deadline, but they know it has to be done.
So they're in the process of trying to develop a work scope, is that kind of what? Okay. Okay, so I guess we are waiting to move forward on that. Next agenda item, we have, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't. Okay.
I think.
Yes, no, you're correct. Thank you.
I'm gonna allow more.
Not used to the hybrid. I know. Sorry.
Hey, everyone, this is Warren again from MCBC. I'm also on the, like Nat, I'm also on the technical advisory committee for the local road safety plan update, which is the countywide plan, which gives all the cities eligibility for certain state and federal, I guess, just federal grant programs. April can correct me if I'm wrong. And I remember, so Bill Whitney in the meeting the other day, I think he said that they're hoping to, like, they're on a pretty accelerated timelining and hoping to pass this plan sometime around August or September. And so it's an update of the last systemic safety analysis report. So like updating it for the last 5 years of collisions, but this time it'll also include visions, like as part of adopting this plan, every city in the county would also adopt a Vision Zero statement. And so in this last week's TAC meeting, we discussed, there was some discussion about how exactly to phrase that Vision Zero statement. So the consultants were kind of presenting us with some options and people were hashing out exactly how that Vision Zero resolution, which again would go to the various councils in Marin, would be phrased. All right, thanks.
So the intent is that each city would adopt an essentially identical resolution?
That's correct. That's what they're aiming to do.
So I guess I have a question. I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this, but in updating the collision data, I know, especially during like COVID lockdowns, the things look pretty atypical from regular patterns. I know there were reduced traffic volumes, there were higher collision rates in a lot of places. And are they accounting for that in some way?
So you might want to agendize this to go into further detail. on
Okay.
all of the details so that people see it on the agenda, they can.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good.
Assisting Tam in the study. Going to be David Greasy, and they're looking at all the collision data stream. They gave us kind of like a kind of a scope view of all the data so far, and they will provide more details as they dive into the data.
Great.
And if I may add, most of the data is comparative. So, everyone had COVID and everyone had the same fluctuation in volume and, so it's still relative. I mean, we depend on that data on the Office of Traffic Safety state statistics, and they compare us to similar cities. So I think the comparative is going to be still telling once we get into the data.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it would be interesting to hear more about that.
Going to call on Kate Powers.
I wanted to make a comment about the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. It was adopted by the council, but the comment that I had, because I participated in the early for BPAC in the early stages of the master planning process, is that while it was an assessment and a plan for maintaining and upgrading facilities, I felt it lacked access to parks and as an important element in planning for parks and recreation, and that a lot of us, whether we're walking or riding a bike to parks, is an important part of the recreation experience. So I just want to recommend to the BPAC that when you do get to the master planning process update for the bike ped master plan, that you focus on knowing that there is a master plan now for improving the parks facilities, that part of the plan really focuses on access to parks. And I think that, two of the goals of the master planning process are to improve safety and connectivity. And I think that falls under that, and that we want not only safe routes to schools, we want safe routes to parks, we want safe routes for seniors, et cetera. And that the limited scope of the master plan and just, planning for the facilities misses the larger importance of planning for the public space and the public realm in general, and how we use all of our public space as community-driven community space that is workable for all of us. And the second thing that I just wanted to say in regards to the access is that, this city is doing some mapping, or is put out an RFP for some companies to do some Google mapping or some LiDAR mapping of the infrastructure around the city. And I think this is a great opportunity also to look at maybe including in this next update of the master plan, a sidewalk master plan, and looking at those intersections that may not be important to bicycle infrastructure, but are really important for pedestrians, because I think that over the years we've emphasized bike infrastructure, and I think that pedestrian infrastructure is key to what we're going for with a comfortable and safe bicycle and pedestrian environment in the city. Thanks.
Add a little bit, or we allowed to comment on that? I just have a little comment. I think Kate brings up great points. So I was the BPAC representative for the second part of this Parks and Rec master plan process. And a thing to add is they did a great big survey of what residents wanted out of their parks. And the first and third items were safe places to ride their bike and safe places to run. Second was swimming, was in between. And the adding paths and safe places to bike and run, which is what people wanted, was basically not addressed in that plan. There was a little bit, they talked about potentially some bike along the shoreline, some bay trail improvements, but basically not addressed. And I brought that up a few times in these meetings, and I think that was very much heard. And they want to incorporate a lot more of that in the trails and open space master plan is what it sounded like from when Catherine is answering the questions. That's why I think that one's so important, is being able to ride to all these places. But I totally agree that that should be a focus of the BPAC, is getting safely to all these parks too. And then a second part is maybe as a question for staff, building off of her comment and needing stuff for pedestrian safety. We had started a big, there was like a big uncontrolled crosswalk survey that Lauren Davini had done, and like 50 crosswalks were addressed, and there was a list of 200 or something. Is there what has happened with that? Or did we do the 50 and that was our first push, and now nothing else?
It was meant to be a dynamic inventory, and we still use it in setting priorities for where our investment for operational budget, even the CIP. That inventory had very nice features where it's a tool to assess the getting the best improvement for your buck, basically. And we still use it, it's still updated, and as we implement the improvements, we update it. And actually that's the tool that took us to Fifth Avenue, which I don't want to open that discussion, but that's one of the tools that this is a couple of crosswalks are in need of attention, so we will continue to update it And actually, we will elaborate on it. I mean, that's the kind of tool that we're looking forward to have in the future.
Like, as I recall, I think this is like right when I was starting, maybe on the board, but as I recall, like a whole flurry of them got done all at once. Like there was a whole bunch that were focused on all at once. The funding for that was just prioritized by the city generally to get all that done.
It was put in the CIP to do a bunch of them, but at the same time, we reported to this committee that based on that inventory, we adjusted our operating budget and we injected some of the funds that April will talk about.
It's in there, yeah, and we
It's
also
in-
we got the TAM Safe Pathways.
Yeah,
The TAM Safe Pathways grant paid for quite a few of them, and we've had some other grants that have paid for
yeah,
more. So it's not just city funds.
yeah, but the operational budget component is to designate an amount of money to address the dire needs of these crosswalks and crossing points. So that's an ongoing program, and we've had 3 very successful years of it. So
Too. I don't know which, top of my head, which ones they are. But
Yeah.
There's a few that we have designed that are gonna done. Future years. And I guess to add to your comment about the bike and ped master plan and the trails master plan, I mean, we can add all the planning discussions on a future agenda item to get into more details if we want, but I mean, the Park and Rec master plan just said the bike and ped master plan needs to address access, which is what Kate said, like, it's not necessarily the trails master plan, the trails open space master plan is likely just gonna be an inventory, like, we don't know what we have, we don't know what the trails are, it's identifying them. We're not necessarily going to plan for what's next, the first step is just inventory.
Sure.
So I would recommend that the bike and ped master plan, which will be ahead of any future planning for the trails master
Oh,
plan.
okay.
Well, I mean, the trails master plan is gonna be the inventory, so that
Yeah,
will be
yeah.
first, but
Great.
I would suggest adding that to the bike and ped.
And we'll probably get to timing of when the next bike and ped master plan is, but I don't know when that is. So. I think that's gonna be part of the agenda.
Yes. Okay. Any other comments from members of the public? Yes.
Hi, my name's Susan. I'm a resident of San Rafael. I want to make a comment on like Vision Zero and like, removing crosswalks for pedestrians. You know, it's in the name of protecting pedestrians by restricting the ability to cross the street. But the community is crying out for better accommodations. We want to be able to walk places. Removing crosswalks in downtown areas and transit areas is very backwards. It doesn't really make sense. It's where we should be promoting pedestrians and cyclists access to transit. We shouldn't be abandoning crosswalks and pedestrian access in favor of improving the flow of traffic. And that's all I have to say today. Oh, actually, I have one other comment. AB 43 passed 16 months ago, and I'm wondering what the city has done to look into lowering speed limits on 4th Street. Thanks.
I mean,
I would wait for that to be agendized.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think AB 43 would be a good future agenda item. My understanding is that we're waiting for the state to come out with guidance.
yes,
So there are some general provisions in AB 43, and they're supposed to, they were, I think Caltrans was directed to come up with some guidance around how to implement that. So there's everyone's trying to figure out what exactly they can actually do, or but that's definitely a good discussion item to put on the list of future items for sure.
But I mean, just procedurally, we gotta be careful, everyone is gonna weigh in on AB 43 since it wasn't agendized, so I don't know if people were asking to talk or gonna talk about that, or
Right.
it's up to you guys, but like we might want to avoid.
Yeah,
something
no,
that-
we're not, we're not talking about E43 now.
We're public comments about the ad hoc committee
We're,
updates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
But I thought I saw one raised hand.
They lowered them when I said we're not.
Oh,
talking
okay.
about it. It's
It's,
not the agenda. We're not gonna
Not
get
jump
into
into it,
it.
yeah.
Sorry, just. Want to make sure everyone has a fair discussion on that.
Okay, and so next item is update from staff on capital improvement projects.
So. Yeah, so one of the reasons why we wanted to have a meeting before waiting until June was to talk about the capital improvement program, because on. June, this is the budget season, so on June 5th, the plan is to present this to council. So we just wanted to present it to the BPAC before that happened. So that's why we scheduled a meeting in between the two meetings, because we didn't have anything in April, and then we thought about it. And thought that we'll give you guys a first preview.
Are we sharing?
I think so.
It says screen
The
share.
screen.
Share.
you are screen sharing.
I'm
It is,
screen sharing.
it is being shared.
Mark Kyle raised his hand. He is a member of the committee.
The screen share is still of the agenda,
Oh,
Oh.
okay, thank you,
Good to
number
know.
one.
thank you.
And number two, can you see me? Do I need to?
Why don't you
My
stop
apologies
sharing?
for A, being late, and B, not being there with you today.
Stop sharing and then share again.
And while you're having technical difficulties, can I ask a question about AB 43 without going down the rabbit hole? Who in the state is developing the guidelines that were mentioned as we think they may be, the state may be developing?
Yeah, I don't have the legislation in front of me. I believe it was Caltrans, but I don't recall.
What do we do? So Mark is a committee member who's on the call, but not here in person. How do we address his attendance? Is he a voting member?
I don't know.
And
It's a
it's
good
like
question.
of the meeting. I
So
don't think we're voting on anything, but.
Yeah. so-
you should now be an attendee or a panelist.
Oh, great.
Going back to the share screen, yeah. That to the left.
There we go.
Okay. I think everyone can see the screen now. Yeah, I'm sharing that screen.
Oh, okay.
Pretty sure. Okay, so, yes, we want to bring this to the BPAC first as a draft. This is the presentation that's gonna be done in June, so this is definitely a draft. Since we have a month to prepare it, so this is just the preview. So it's a 3-year capital improvement planning tool. So typically we lay out the next 3 years. The first year in the CIP, like the next upcoming fiscal year, is the projects that we really think we're gonna do. Like, we're gonna try our best to do those projects. The next 2 years are planning. We think we might do them, maybe grants say we have to do them that year, but really it's that first year that is what our plan is on what to do. And then every year we update through budget, sometimes, costs go up and stuff. That's what we do during this process. So between March and June, we're constantly looking at what the budgets, what can we do, what's coming up. And sometimes it changes because we just received a bunch of grants in this last year, so that changed all of our priorities because those all have deadlines. And so this is how we currently, the table below is how we currently identify and prioritize projects. So health and safety has the highest weight because, we're really trying to make sure public health and safety is our number one concern. And so, and also, what can we do to, if the project also reduces the city's risk of liability, that's weighted higher. So there's different levels of the rankings. Priority initiative, that's based on city goals, including projects that advance equity in the community, the guiding principles of Together Santa Fe, the general plan, and then also the city and community supported projects. So that's where those rankings come in. As I mentioned, the time sensitive funds comes into grant funding. So typically, or when we start looking at grants for project, they've already ranked pretty high in the other 3 categories, but now we got money. So 10 is our funding's gonna expire. It gets to 10 because that's the top of our list. And then, you know, some of them we have grant funding, but timeline's further out, so it's a little bit less. And then we have to, you know, maintain and enhance functionality there. And so that's kind of based on the urgency of the repair. It's also partially, you know, are we spending a lot of money to maintain something that if we did a project, it would significantly reduce staff time and the cost of just repairing it. So you know, that fluctuates a little bit. So this is a graphic that's definitely a work in progress. It's a graphic based on a conversation that Rafat and I had, and he drew up on the whiteboard, and we're just trying to figure out, like, there's so many things that go on when we're trying to think about these projects. Like there was those rankings we just showed everybody, but then there's also what are some of these other factors, like there could be joint projects. You know, for instance, Caltrans has this roundabout that's happening on Freitas that they're designing that we wouldn't necessarily do right now, but they're designing it, they're paying for the funding, like we'll throw a little bit of money towards that. It's, you know, economy of scale, and it's also, that's just kind of what happens. It happens with current development too. You know, if we know current development's coming in, sometimes that helps, that, you know, brings projects higher up. You know, we have different regional priorities we talked about with Vision Zero, or different regulatory mandates. For instance, not related to transportation, but we're required to have trash capture devices on all of our structures by 2030, all of our system. That's a mandate. We're gonna get fined if we don't, or we might get fined if we don't. So that's definitely a priority and something that we're looking at, working with the county on how do we get money and how do we do that. So there's those types of things. And then there's all the planning documents like the general plan, part size plan, bike and ped master plan. And we also have to consider maintenance, you know, accessibility, sidewalks. What are, you know, bringing things up to current standards, like all of our traffic signals. They were at the standard when they were built, but you know, we need to bring some of those up. And then there's also the city council goals and objectives and different community priorities. And what I mentioned before, safety and liability concerns. So all of that weighs into, like, how do we even come up with a list of projects? There's a lot, and there's a lot more projects than even in our document that we end up producing, just because there's so many things going on. So the capital improvement program doesn't just do transportation. We have a stormwater fund, we have a bunch of pump stations, we do all of our facilities. And there's I think 43 facilities that the capital improvement program helps keep up with the repairs. All the fire stations are included, all of the parks, we do projects, and then there's emergencies. Like this winter was hard on public works, and there's a bunch of projects that came out of that we didn't plan to do, and it's all coming out of the same resources. So all of that, you know, thinking about all of that, you know, we came up with like these buckets, like how we try to figure out like year one's implementation, and we're trying to plan for the next 2 years. Those buckets are really dependent on how, you know, the number of projects, the size of the project, the budget, staffing. I mean, for instance, our CIP team was down 3 engineers out of 7 for half the year, which means all the projects that we thought we were going to do, just some of them just couldn't be done. And then we had storms, so we're doing response. And so that's just all of the factors, because I know there's a lot of discussions on, well, why can't you just do this? There's a limit. And so then whatever we don't get done gets kicked over to the next year. So all the stuff we didn't do this year that was a priority, it's still a priority. It just gets moved over 1 year. And that's just the way it works. Staffing is really hard. And so just to kind of explain it in, you know, a graphic that I'll continue to work on, and then just talking about our team. So Public Works has 55 full-time employees. The CIP team has 7, and then the shaded back are temp employees that we have. So we have 7 people in the CIP. They're not all there. We have vacancies. And then there's also the traffic division, which Rafat and Nat are in, who help the CIP team on planning and sometimes help run a few of the projects. But it's a very small team that's working on everything that we showed on the last slide. And then just to kind of point out that, so we're in the middle of doing our goals and objectives. And so City Council's plan is to do a 2-year goals and objectives. That's what they did the last 2 years also. So if anybody wants to know what the citywide goals are, there's a meeting next Monday on the 8th. Another meeting at City Council on the 15th, and that's going to go into all the citywide goals. And some of our goals will be part of that, and they'll also help dictate what we want to do. These are just a few of the things that Public Works has on our list of goals and objectives, mostly around the CIP team. So one of our biggest goals starting next year and over the next 2 years is we're trying to figure out, and Kate alluded to it. So the asset management inventory, we're going to drive every single street. We have an RP out to drive every single street in the city to identify all the signs, all of the striping, which curb ramps have domes, just a whole list of things so that we can actually capture what we have. Because right now we don't know, or at least we don't have a list. I mean, I can drive around, I can identify, but we don't have anything that actually lists. So for instance, one of the goals I always think of, for an example, is identifying how many crosswalks we have so we can have a rotation. So like, let's say we have 40 crosswalks, we're going to do 5 every year. I know the number is not accurate, but so we have it set so everyone knows like it's going to be restriped and have that plan. Right now it's more on a complaint base, or if we see something, but we can't be everywhere. So really getting that inventory is key, and that's what we're working on right now. That'll go to council next month, and then we're going to do a strategic plan to like think about the inventory, because you can't just get inventory. You need to like plan on how we're going to use that inventory. And then our plan is to get an asset management software to help us with as a planning tool, and also just help us manage everything. So that's I'd say one of our top goals. Another goal, as I mentioned earlier, when I showed the chart on how we currently rank projects in the CAP, our goal next year is to update that process. We've been doing that same process for about 4 years, and we're at the point where, just seeing other examples. I was involved with the Park and Rec Master Plan, and they had a very extensive way that they rank projects, and a very extensive way, like they were taking community surveys, giving different points for the general plan, and just more points than what ours showed. So next year, our plan is to really dive into that and come up with a new process with more metrics that aren't, some of it's like, how do you rank something between 7 and 10? You kind of, that feels like an 8. So we want to have more, more ways to rank things. And then as everyone's asking, what are we going to do in the next couple of years? Update the Bike and Ped Master Plan is on our list. The goal is to start it next year. It's a little bit dependent on a grant that we're going after, when exactly we can start it and when exactly we get money, or if we get it. If not, no matter what, we're going to do it. It's just what level of update we're gonna do. And then we have a couple of other master plans that our group's working on: the building maintenance, storm drain. We're involved. Our sustainability group is leading the sea level rise study, but the same CIP team is working on that. And then we talked about it earlier, but one of our goals is to support TAM on the countywide safety report update and Vision Zero strategies and policies. I use the word strategy just because I hadn't talked to now what exactly they're calling it. And then obviously, like, the number one thing is, or not number one thing, but we really need to explore and apply for more grant funding opportunities, because that's how we get projects done. Because funding is one of the big ways we get things done in the city. So just a few, like I said, this is a draft, these are going through together. So a few of the big projects that happened this current fiscal year. I mean, everyone's been looking at 3rd Street. We're 14 months in. The goal is to have at least from West Street to Lindaro paved by July, which would be within the 18 months we said. The other part is a different project, so that'll be paved a few months later. But yeah, we have the nice bike path there, and then all these, a ton of pedestrian updates that we have with these bollards at the intersections, which really is getting people to slow down if anybody's driven around those. And then a couple of pedestrian projects that we did. We did a bunch of sidewalk repairs in the last month on Freitas. There were those trees have been pushing up the sidewalk for a while there. And then we added a new sidewalk on Mission Avenue from B Street to E Street. So typically sidewalks are the responsibility of the adjacent property owner, but there's a few sidewalks that the city owns because we're the adjacent property owner, or just people front a different street. Like Freitas, everyone fronts the side street, no one fronts Freitas. So Freitas is ours. So we try to do some remove and replace sidewalks each year as part of our annual program. I'll show you. Just to a little idea on the different funding sources for transportation projects. We have gas tax and we have traffic mitigation fees. The next slide will show how much money we about get in each of those. And then this is all the money, the next, on the bottom part is all the money we received or said that we we're gonna receive in 22-23. So we applied for a bunch of grants. And this is all the money that we've gotten. For transportation specific, we've gotten other grants too for parks and our libraries and stuff. So a significant amount of money that we've gotten. Especially compared to how much money we have each year. So these are all the different, they're approximate, it changes every single year. But these are the current numbers that we're looking at with how much money we're gonna get from gas tax and, you know, and about what we get in traffic mitigations each year. And so some of these funding sources are very specific. For instance, the refuge regulatory fee that we get that from Marin Sanitary because their trucks speed up the roads. That fee is the same amount of money that we do for our payment management program. That fee just goes directly to that because that's why we get the fee. And then there's some regulations on State Bill 1, the RMRA funding, and then, you know, we have to track the TAN money, and there's different fees we have to track and report projects that we do. Now, Fund 246, the traffic mitigation fee, that number is all over the place. I mean, 1 year we got, I think 2 years ago, we got less than 100,000. And then a couple years before that, we got 1.5 million. It's totally dependent on development. So the way we handle that is we assume an average of $350,000 a year. And then if we happen to get more money, the next fiscal year, we program a bunch of projects. Because we can't predict it. We know there's a bunch of development, so we're hopeful that, you know, there'll be more money there. And then, so this is the operating budget each year. So there's some things these are the fund types we just talked about, and there's some things that we just set aside each year. So this is, the gas tax also helps pay for some of the pipe infrastructure. We have a very old city with a lot of aging infrastructure. So CMP pipes are old corrugated metal pipes that are, a lot of them are rotted out. If they've used their useful life. So we set aside money each year. This year we have more because of the storms that just happened. We found a lot more pipes that we need to replace. So we actually have $500,000 set aside for that this year. And then, so the pavement management program is what I listed. That's from Marin Sanitary pretty much. And then we have a few other things when we talk about sidewalks and accessibility. So we have the sidewalk repair program. That program is for private residents who want to replace their sidewalk. It's uneven. They can actually apply with the city. The city will do some of it like a 50-50 match. So we have a budget set aside for anybody who wants to come in, the tree uplifting, the sidewalk. You know, I think part of it, like we'll take down the tree and then we can put in a new one and then they have to maintain it, but we'll split the sidewalk costs. That's roughly how it works. So we set aside $450,000 a year to do that. We also have the sidewalk remove and replace, and that's what we did on Freitas because the sidewalk really needs to be done, and how we did the Mission Avenue sidewalk. And then there's general traffic signal maintenance projects that happen, and then we also have money set aside, if you see on the bike and ped master plan grant concept designs. So we've been working on, we kind of just looked at the rankings in the current bike and ped master plan and from the top, and like, let's try to pick off a couple of these to at least get conceptual designs so we can go after grants. And one of the top ranked projects was on Freitas Parkway. There's a multi-use path on the north side. And so right now we're working on those concept drawings to see how much it would cost for a grant. There's a few other ones we have in the works, but usually that's straight out of the bike and ped master plan. Let's try to do some concepts there. And then you asked earlier about the crosswalk improvements. We have 125,000 set aside to pick off a couple of those crosswalks from that crosswalk plan each year to do like rectangular flashing beacons, update ramps. And then smart cities, there's lots of different things you guys do on that. So let me see this. So these are some of the projects that, you know, we have on our list to do next fiscal year. We want to get the 3rd Street project done. That the intent is to be done by the fall on both of the projects. And as you can see, I've also listed how they're funded. So a lot of these were funded because from outside sources. We talked about supporting Caltrans on the Freitas roundabout. The Great Avenue cycle tracks looking to be bid in June, so we're hoping that's gonna be done or at least start construction by summer. The Second Fourth Street project's been presented here. And so we're gonna complete the design and bid that this fiscal year. There's a canal transportation experience project that we're gonna design. And then the next two are projects that we have not brought to the BTAC yet, so I just have a little bit, another slide, so. We just received an HSIP grant, so Highway Safety Improvement Program grant. We applied for a big one that covered like all of Lincoln. But then we also applied for ones that were the highest, it's called a benefit cost ratio. And so they picked the small one, which is just these two intersections. And it's $250,000 to upgrade those ones. I think it includes rectangular rapid flashing beacons, curb ramps, curb extensions. So next fiscal year, our goal is to really look at Lincoln Avenue and prioritize, are there other intersections we can also do? Is there some sort, do we have some of our funding in the next couple of years that we can use to upgrade more than these two? And then are there grants? Because Lincoln Avenue is one of the top roads on the county safety plan on, accident or collisions. And so it's very high on the list. So that next year, our plan is to kind of scope that.
And is that car collisions or is that bike ped
It's
collisions?
all, yeah. Yeah, our grant application had listed how many there were for each of those. And then, so one of the things that every year, at least for the last 2 years, all the senators we applied for Senator Diaz, Feinstein, and then Huffman have all had earmarks. And typically, we've been working with our federal advocacy group, and they said, based on our city size, we shouldn't ask for more than $1.5 million out of one of these. And so we applied for the same project for all three, hoping that somebody would bite on it. And so we applied for the multi-use path. We're calling it phase 1. And that's from Civic Center Drive on the south side of the smart tracks. Right now, there's an unofficial trail right there. So we were just told about a week or two ago that Senator Padilla is actually put us on his earmark list. So that doesn't mean we have the money, but at least we got on the list. And so our next steps are really providing even more additional support letters. We've already had a bunch, but we're trying to ask for even more. Warren Wells sent me another one today. So we're just trying to flood them with support from everybody. We're getting the principal, just trying to really show that we need this money. So I know I just said fingers crossed. I'm not sure what else besides just telling them it's really needed. But that's exciting because we were not successful last year. But at least people are looking at San Rafael. And yeah, that's it for the presentation. That was a lot of information, but we just wanted to. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Yeah, the two recent projects that I hadn't heard about either
Yeah.
at all. For the Civic Center, letters of support, would it be helpful for the BPAC to draft a letter of support that we would then send to the office? Or is it better for us personally to do it, or are you just looking for organizations?
I don't know. What do you think, from anybody? I mean, BPAC would be nice too. I know we have, we had the mayor, WTB Tam wrote in, we had the supervisor.
Yeah.
Can't remember which one now is.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah,
VPAC supported and provided a couple of letters when we were doing the applications. So, every time we apply for any grant, VPAC is on top of the list. WTP TAM has been very supportive. Warren Wells from the coalition have been very supportive. TAM has been very supportive. Sometimes if we need the transit agencies, they drop everything and they write a letter. So yes, definitely. I mean,
From individual or from BPAC? Which
BPAC comes across better, and it really depends. We really need to look at the audience. I mean, for Pedella's, I think we got it from everyone, including our mayor. So it's like We want to show that there's a community support. If there's a street that is more, requires more letters, anyone who's willing to write the letter will take his letter.
But for this one, I think our goal is to get any additional letters of support, by early next week. So, I mean, if that's something that, BPAC wants to do, I mean, yes, any letter I think will help towards the,
Barry, what do we need to do to get a letter be like officially from the?
That's a
Could
good.
we do a
What I was wondering,
subcommittee?
same thing.
Can we appoint a subcommittee to write a letter?
We can help you. I mean,
we have a draft, we have a draft.
Well, like, how do we
Yeah, but if
agree
you
that
have
we're
if you have a
willing to send
template,
it?
we can modify that and.
I really don't think that because you're an advisory body to the city council, you really don't need to take an official action to write a letter. Because that's your function. I mean, you're promoting the building and the implementation of the bicycle master plan. It's all congruent with your goals. So I think writing a letter, if we want to bog it down with the bureaucracy of a meeting and its formal action, we'll never write a letter.
So we should just write a letter.
Just write the letter.
Can they appoint me to write a letter that we send? I mean,
Write the letter, and I think it should be, I mean, who's gonna say no to something that pushes forward the goals of the committee?
Are you saying that you're
Your chair.
volunteering to write the letter?
Yeah, I'll use ChatGPT.
If you'd like to volunteer to write the letter, I'd say you are welcome to write the letter. That would be excellent.
So I will write something,
Thank
send
you.
it to you.
Send it to me, April, Nat, anyone will shepherd it.
Like I said, you are the template we've been sending people,
That would be great.
so give some background. Anything else on that very lengthy?
Yeah, we're gonna have a bunch more, so.
Okay.
but-
I guess. So I saw that you had on there for the developing the concept designs for bike path master plan. But you also said that also on the list was updating the plan itself,
Yes,
right, which is a separate item. Right, so the 50,000 was just design money.
yeah, the 50,000 is to do a couple concepts based on the existing master plan.
Right.
So yes, we have a budget also set aside to update the actual master plan.
Okay.
And do you have projects already that you have identified that you want to do, or is that? How are you gonna identify which projects?
We're going off the current list.
Okay.
Of projects and, I think, yeah, I mean, we've done.
But
few
there's
on
a
the
lot,
top.
there's a lot on that
Well,
current,
we're
there's like
going off the ranking that happened in the bike and master plan back in 2018. So.
But I think there's a
we're going
lot
off-
that are probably high, and I'm sure it also depends on, well, if you're going after grant funding, what's the best fit for the grants,
Yes,
right?
there's two, but we're definitely starting at the top of the list. If one meets the criteria we've been seeing on grants, then we're doing those ones.
So my question then would be about Fifth Avenue down by Sun Valley. So we, there's been a fair bit of momentum about that. Whenever the last 6 months or so. And is that one that you were considering prioritizing? Like one thing that I thought I'd like to see is a corridor study done on there to really figure out what to do. And this is the time we would ask for money to do that. And I didn't see it laid out. But maybe we could be living in that $50,000. What are the next steps for a project like that?
You like to do that?
I mean,
Hmm.
I know that there's other projects that are not in the bike and ped master plan that are priority to the community.
That one is also in the budget.
Yeah, but
Plan as a
but-
high priority, so.
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, we haven't. I mean, I have to check out what project we've already like listed on the side that we were thinking about doing, I know. But I don't know if we planned those two projects for next year.
Yeah,
And the idea would be to do more than one. And we have to think about whether or not Fifth Avenue would be a good grant candidate, because I'm not sure. I mean, based on the grants we've seen.
what
if it
we're
would
also
be-
trying, and there, it's like a puzzle. It's like you're knocking on door number 1, 2, and 3. You're trying to get in. You're trying to get this project going. So we realize that Fifth Avenue is high on the priority for the community, and it is on our priority. But there are ways to get the project implemented, and one of them is to go through TAM, through because TAM has the Safe Route to School budget. And that budget has a small component, which is capital improvements. So there are so many demands on that small budget that Fifth Avenue may surface to the top of that budget, depending on how other projects pan out. Because like you mentioned, each project is unique in its challenge. Have we done the outreach? Is it controversial? Is it ready to build? Is it shovel ready? So we're trying to use the TAM and the consultant parametrics, David Parisi, to try to move the project as close as possible to shovel ready. And the most challenging part of it is, what are we going to do? And that's the outreach that we need to really knock on that door, clear that controversy, decide what is best to do, and then package it financially to get implemented.
I have an idea. So what if staff looks at the list of projects? Because I know, for instance, we were discussing that a good grant project would be to connect the Grand Avenue cycle track to the new transit center. Like on 4th Street, let's get everyone there. Like we have the connection, that would be ranked very high. It's a direct connection from the canal neighborhood, and disadvantaged communities ranked very high on any, on fund or like trying to get funding. So that's one of the projects we identified of the two that we wanted to at least study. Let's look at it. What can we do for that? Maybe we'll we'll add 5th to the list. Maybe we'll come up with 5 projects, and that other grant or the other portion that we're going to study, we can bring it back to BPAC and say, what do you guys think? Let's rank these. Let's do a mini ranking, even though there was a big ranking, and talk about like, what is that other 25,000? I think we do need to go after the one on 4th because of the likelihood we're going to get a grant.
Yeah, that's a great project. I mean, the under 101 cross top of like all of our plan, it's in there a million times. It's like one of our things in our tracking milestones, like that single project.
Yeah.
And it would,
My worry, going back to Fifth Avenue, my worry about depending on safe routes to school and David Parisi's thing is they're really looking at that last segment close to the school, like from Andy's Market, California there. And when we were out there walking it, it's like a mile of a problem, so they're looking at the last, whatever, quarter mile, couple blocks. And it's a much larger problem to connect that with downtown than safe routes to school is really going to tackle.
But that's the most challenging part and the busiest part. And we need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't start with a $15 million project and hope for something. We need to start somewhere.
Well, I guess the question with if it would be done with the Safe Routes to School project, would they be truncating the project? Or would the city be able to supplement it to cover the longer?
Exactly.
Potentially, and that's where that one bucket comes in of like other projects, and it's like, oh, well, if somebody else is funding a significant section, we would look at that. I mean, this was one of the hardest, I mean, I've only been in the city 3 years, but by far this was the hardest year to do the budget because we used to have a rollover every year and we no longer have a rollover of funds. So we're very set on a very limited amount of money, which is why we're really focusing on grants. But I know we were at, I don't know if it was at BPAC or city council, but B Street was brought up, right? We're talking about the B Street conversion, and everyone's like, why are you guys studying online research? So like, I hear you, but like, it's all these competing interests. And so like, that was a priority a couple months ago. So now we're like, okay, so let's, I think it'd be good if we come up with a list.
I would like to close the loop on all. I think also part of the issue with Fifth is a couple months ago when we had David here, Breezy. He presented 3 safe routes to schools projects, and the Fifth Valley project, he just presented the challenges. There were no solutions at all. It was just like, yeah, this is really tough, and we haven't heard any update and progress on that. Hasn't come before the committee. And he brought another one a couple in Terra Linda, and then one by the Civic Center that had a bunch of solutions we were looking at. But the Fifth Ave, the Sun Valley study was just like current status, no no thinking of a solution to it like the others. And I think that's a great place to start. And I haven't seen the second half of that project. No, you had three and two of them were really good and done. That one had just, I mean, he said he hadn't had time to fully address it. But I think that's.
Actually, it's coming back to the VPAC. Fifth Avenue is coming back. And actually, we have a schedule for June 7th. We have Frida's interchange, because that was ranked high, like April mentioned, regional priorities. TAM rated that project highest on the list, and Parametrics is working on that project. So, and if you recall, last time when we came to the committee, asking 30,000 feet questions. Okay, we weren't ready to dive. I mean, where do you want us to go? What is your vision? So it was a probing, it wasn't a project, it was a higher level project development. It wasn't the details that we were.
Well, and I agree, and that's what we got for the other two, but for the Sun Valley one in particular, there was a commenter who called in that was like, I think he mentioned that there were a lot of challenges, and there's gonna be a lot of trade-offs, and some are parking trade-off, et cetera, et cetera. And someone was like, just tell us what the options are, and then we can decide. And we haven't even seen any of the options.
We'll continue discussion on that. I mean, you realize, and I hope everyone realizes that this is far too challenging, because it's very busy. And it's an opportunity. We look at it from the city's lens, that it is an opportunity to promote multimodal school traffic, which is high on our priority. But there's parking, and there are other people using the street to access, and the vehicle still king. So, where do we compromise? And the right of way is limited by the hillside and the proximity of existing residences. So it needs a lot more communication. It needs a lot of outreach to get to the right solution, regardless of how much it's going to cost.
Yeah, I totally agree. We just haven't had like you said, the vehicle is still king, and we need the outreach, but we need to have the plans. Does the community really think that the vehicle still needs to be king? Like a fourth grader got hit and was unconscious in front of school. It's one of the most dangerous places we have. So I think you bring that to the community, and we can challenge a lot of these assumptions.
Yeah.
And I think if you brought it to the community, there would be people that would be willing to have trade-offs for significant safety improvements, but we just have to show them, give them those options.
Yeah. And I think it really comes down to something that always goes back to, is that bucket of our capacity. And it is a priority, but it's gonna come down to, that's one person helping with studies, and
Well,
he has help from 5 people, but
No. I think that's
a lot
the
of
idea
things
of
going
listing
on.
the priorities in our master plan. I
Yeah.
think it's great, and seeing if it's one of the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
probably will
that's,
be.
and that's the kind of project that it's definitely going to need a lot of input. It's not something you want to do a cursory job with the input, because that's just going to blow up. It's not going to accomplish.
You really need that. The hard part is the reason why we just set aside 50,000 is these are projects that already have the support that we're going after. So we can get the support letters easily. Fifth Avenue needs a ton of outreach to try to get that support. And that what we have set aside will not pay for that. I mean, and we have to have that in order to apply for any grants. So it is a bigger one. I mean, yeah, it could be on our list of projects, and definitely, be something that we need to rank against and figure out. Anybody else?
Do you have any comments, questions?
No, I mean, I live in Terralinda, it's north of Rafael, so I'm happy to see a bunch of things about Freitas there in the smart path. I think that's really important, because all these connectivity to the highway are just pretty bad right now, and there's a lot of development going there. So potentially a lot more pedestrian but also cars. And right now, I mean, I know that around Northgate, these are some of the most dangerous intersection I know too. 'Cause I sometimes see people trying to go around across the street, with stuff. to say the least. So, yeah, I think some roundabouts there. But there's just one plan, but it'd be great. So, just that's my comment on that. Since moving forward.
Was there a specific funding request for the bike ped master plan update, or is that dependent on the grant or?
We have money set aside to do just a regular update. But I don't know if you want to go into, one of you two want to talk about the grant. that we're applying that
I'll be
we-
happy to
we
actually,
can't-
this is something that we will come back to you with a brand new concept. As much as we need to be focused on pedestrians and bicyclists, we living in a multimodal environment. And meaning that we shouldn't be leaving buses or the micromobility options or the vehicle, even the vehicle. I mean, we're not all advocate. I mean, this is the transportation, the multimodal advisory board to the city council. So we had the opportunity to take a deep breath and look at the funding source for planning applications. We found out, and April mentioned to me the other day, that planning applications have been very successful. Why can't we just look for a planning grant application that is encompassing of the environment that we're in, a multimodal environment? So we actually are hiring a consultant to help us with a comprehensive plan. And if we are successful with applying for $1 million, we can leverage the 150, or I don't know how much money we have, even 1 or 150 local funds to upgrade the bicycle pedestrian master plan. And the vision for that is addressing the elephant in the room. I mean, we're really talking, left and right, up and down, trying to find our priorities. And out of this exercise, if we're successful, the vision is to get a tool that tells us clearly, this is the highest location. And once we agree on the criteria, and we will have the bicycle pedestrian committee participate in that process. Once we pinpoint all of the goals that we want to achieve, this tool will tell us this is your highest priority project multimodally. And this is where all of your transportation dollars should be looking in a multimodal fashion and not specific to pedestrian, bicycle, vehicle, capacity, smart city, and all of these competing priorities. So, I mean, that's the vision that we're seeing for the future. And that's what we're going to go after. And we will, at the next meeting or the following meeting, depending on the application is due on July 10th. So we're going to have to bring it June 7th, further discussion about it, something written, not just out of the top of my head. We will have something written that you will react to. And that would be the first step in the participation in building that. If we get, and we're most likely, I shouldn't be saying this. I'm very hopeful that we will get the money. So it is a paradigm shift a little bit, that we're as good as our 2018 bicycle pedestrian master plan, and as thorough as it was, if we can take it to the next level and multiply the effort by at least 5 or 6, that we will get much better results.
So it sounds like you're talking about developing like either a transportation master plan or a mobility plan, something that is so this would bike ped master plan would be rolled into a multimodal framework.
Yes,
If we get the grant.
Okay.
if we get the grant. If we don't get the grant, we
Stick
we
with
bank
what's
the money
existing.
and we update the grant, but I think we should continue to get grants. And, 6.1 is a multimodal approach, right? In the plan, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at the precise plan right now.
In the
Yeah.
precise plan.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's,
sorry.
that, yeah.
We got a great precise plan for
Yeah.
downtown Tony Gordy.
And actually, that's a discussion with the city council on May 8th. The multimodal vision is real in the precise plan. The only way for the downtown to mature and grow is multimodal. So it has to be balanced multimodal vision that we go through. And the precise plan is a general plan level. It doesn't dive into the details. We're hoping to develop the vision together, and then based on that, develop the tool that will be used and discussed and adjusted as we move forward.
And when you're talking about a tool, are you talking about something that's quantitative? Kind of a way to prioritize is like the more deep, what April was talking about, more kind of a more nuanced way of scoring projects. Is that what you mean?
In my personal opinion, maybe I'm limited in my thought, that I'm looking at it and it would run parallel to what we've done with the crosswalk inventory. Do we have lighting? Do we have the right size, the signs? How many people use it? How many vehicles cross it? And all of these factors continue to play a role until we get a priority rank. So, but if you do it on a multimodal vision, we need to set all of the modes on par and start thinking, how can we get to our goals with a much more complicated, much more complex interactive tool. And that's why we got the best, we got a very strong consultant who managed to get there with other cities, but we're gonna even push their abilities to the next level.
Can I be a pain for a minute?
Take 2 minutes.
So two things. I take a little issue with you saying we're a multimodal committee. We're the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Right? That is like I just looked up just in case. Our mission statement is to promote bicycling and walking as a viable means of transportation throughout San Rafael. Right. So like our mission is not to prioritize cars in transportation. So that's one thing, and there could be a multimodal committee, and I'm very interested in that also, but like,
Yeah,
I think our real goal and our focus is for bicycles and pedestrians. The other thing, when you're talking about, Michael, you said with multimodal and putting everything on an equal playing field, we have our multimodal approach and intent in the precise plan, and it is not putting things on equal playing field. Right, it is our complete streets modal priority, prioritizing space in order of how space efficient the travel modes are.
These
So
are the
this-
things that we will tweak in that tool.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why I started. I said I might be limited in my thought because this needs to be broad. If I knew all the answers, I don't know. I probably
I'm over
I
here
don't
bringing
know.
problems.
But I think it needs to be a balanced approach, and I totally agree with you. We need to take a look at current deficiencies as part of this. I mean, if we spent 50 years building for the car infrastructure, that factor needs to be taken into place. That why weren't we building for pedestrian and bikes? If we started 50 years, this would have been a different community. So, the makeup time is your role to advocate. And as a city traffic engineer, I have a multimodal responsibility. I will listen to you. I will go through the trenches with you, but we eventually we have a much higher call than just pedestrian and bikes. And maybe I'm saying that in the wrong.
Second frame. 50 years to catch up on, and I think it's our committee's goal is to help catch up. Yeah, that's really important.
No, I mean,
My other point is I do think it's really important, even if we have this, is to have a really strong plan for bike and peds. We have two really good plans for bike and peds right now. Our current bike and ped plan is good.
Yes.
And it lays out priorities through 2028. It's tracking milestones for 10 years in that plan. And I think it certainly should get updated, but it's a good document. And I think the problem is that we need to be following it better than we do and prioritizing it sort of more all the time. In the same way, the precise plan 2040, this multimodal thing is for people on the committee. I think that is necessary reading, just like our bike plan too. It again is it's high level, but it lays out in my mind, a pretty incredible vision for the community. And so like we have these two good plans that are really emphasizing here's a hint for the precise plan. It really emphasizes bike and ped stuff in that precise plan. So we have these two really good plans already.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important for us as a committee to pushing that in. Lots of other people are going to be pushing cars and it's in.
You know, I'm not here pushing cars. I just wanna emphasize that the responsibility for a balanced approach in transportation spending lays on the shoulders of April and city manager and city council. I mean, I feel like I'm an advisor as much as you are.
Been so successful on the bike and pedestrian projects we've done in the last few years is because we got grant.
Yes.
Because ultimately, like the precise plan and all these documents are great, but unless we get outside
Sure.
funding,
Right.
we're never gonna be able to afford to do anything in there. It's gonna be
and
tiny little bit, tiny project at a time and.
right, and well, then the priorities for grants generally are what? Complete streets, disadvantaged communities, multimodal,
Yep.
safety. Yeah. So, I mean, all those things that we're talking about are, that's where we're gonna get the grants.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you talk about balance, and balance means different things to different people, and not until we see the details that we know what that means. So I am curious to see what'll come back, I guess, in the June meeting, and then we'll see some sort of framing of what that begins to look like.
I mean, I think that on the June 7th, we're gonna be talking about the application that is due on July 10th.
Right.
But the actual making of the plan is gonna take a lot of work.
Yeah.
And that's why we have, I mean, part of the grant is to have the horsepower to shepherd us through the development of the plan, which all of these discussions that you brought up are valid discussions to shape the plan.
I think given that the level of detail that was in the current bike and ped master plan, I guess the thing is, well, how do you take that and create a multimodal framework and not lose what that level of detail? So maybe it's more of an umbrella kind of a thing that incorporates different elements.
Actually, I don't see any lose. I see gaining focus and not losing any.
Yeah, I'm not objecting to bring all the modes in. I just don't want to lose what the work that's been done, the direction that we've been headed.
No, the work has, I mean,
Yeah.
it's fabulous. I think the plan is good and I think it's still good.
Mhm.
Okay, so how do you, the challenge is, how do you extract the right project? And how do you have a balanced transportation focus on the whole thing? It's easy to say this is the top, any one of those 40 projects in the bicycle pedestrian master plan will fill the bucket twice.
Sure.
More than that.
Yeah. No, a single project will fill the bucket. I'm not saying the 40 projects will overwhelm every bucket.
But when you talk about that bucket, that is a bucket that is allotted to bike and ped planning, right? And there's other things and we sort of choose how much of the whole Department of Public Works budget goes towards bike and ped. That is a priority in itself of how much you do. And again, like I on this committee, if I'm talking about bicycle and pedestrian stuff, I think it's part of my job is like anytime the city council hears is to hear like, yeah, it's going well. We want more. We want it more of a priority. You know, so we could sort of expand those dollars and do 2 of the projects instead of, you know, instead of 1.
Yeah, and accessibility, so curb ramp upgrades, it's part of every single project, which isn't necessarily highlighted, so even if, you know,
Sure.
even if the projects are pavement you know, our pavement program, if we do anything more than story, we have to upgrade accessibility, so those things aren't highlighted, so we do look at pedestrians on projects that don't look like they're,
Mhm.
you know, a bike and ped project, but we do keep that in mind. So it's hard to quantify that aspect of it too.
The other reason that I think, I mean, why I think these plans are important and why I think the bike ped plans are important is every time that I speak to a city council member, when we say this is part of our bike ped master plan, we need to go towards our bike ped master plan. Just like I did a couple months ago with B Street, like, hey, this is in our plan. Let's just listen to our plan. They take that as like, we have this plan. We need to follow this plan, you know, and that is like what I hear all the time. It's like, we're doing good work following our plan. And so that makes me think it's really important for when they're allocating money for us to have a really strong plan to follow, because you just point to it and say, that's in the plan.
Yeah, that's definitely what we've been doing, you know, at least since I started here a few years
Yeah.
ago, was like, well, have we looked at the top 10 projects? Have we done anything for them? Some of those projects, we've been doing these studies because they hadn't been looked at since 2018. Like, so just really trying to at least get a few of those, so this next update's like, check, you know, and that's, it's hard, but we're trying to get to some of those, so at least we can no longer just say feasibility of this, we can say we've studied it, you know, so now is it priority still?
Check reference, we do have to.
Okay, great.
Should we call it?
Let's,
Oh, we must have,
I'm gonna ask Matt, I'm gonna allow you to talk.
I forget they're here.
forgot about you.
We're listening.
Okay, I guess it's on me now. This is Matt with WGB TAM. Thanks for the conversation today. Just a couple of comments. So we really liked to hear that studying a connection between the Grand Avenue cycle track and the transit center is something on the table. Want to express strong support for that. And we already sent in a letter to help get the Rafael Meadows pathway, that federal earmark, and so fingers crossed as well. I did want to say that earlier today at the SMART meeting, Commissioner Mary Sackett, Supervisor Mary Sackett, was talking about that project a lot. She's really, really interested in it. So it'd be good to make sure that she has a letter in support for this earmark. And I think also SMART itself, I think maybe she could be a liaison to get SMART to write a letter, because it would be in support of their goals, increasing ridership on the train and connecting that whole neighborhood of Rafael Meadows to the SMART station, and they currently have no direct way to get there. If they haven't already written a letter, we think the Venetia Valley School should definitely be writing a letter in support of this project, and probably the PTA, and maybe do an announcement at the next PTA meeting to get individual parents of that school to also write letters, to just increase the number of letters and hopefully get that earmark through. So I think that's all my comments for now. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, I'm gonna call on Kate Power.
Hi, it's Kate Powers again. I just had a couple of comments in terms of the pathway on the south side of the Civic Center station. I think it's really important to get letters from the neighbors that have come out since the Civic Center station area plan began. There have been people like Kathy Manovi and Ken Dickinson and Greg Andrew, who all live in the Rafael Meadows neighborhood. I think that it's really important to get our community members who have asked for this for a long period of time, have them have an opportunity to know that letters of support are important, and to get them to write letters, because often it's the neighborhoods that are benefiting from it, that are supporting these projects, add and push things over the hump. So I would highly recommend that if you don't have letters from those folks already, that the city do some outreach to them. It shows them that their public participation is important to the city, and that the city has been listening to them all these many years. And then as far as the tool, one thing after Paul Jensen retired from the city, I did an interview with him for the MCL newsletter, and I asked him about his, looking back at things. And one of the things that he said that he was really proud of was the breakdown of the silos between planning and community development and the Department of Public Works, and that the Department of Public Works, this was a number of years ago, had really started to do engage the public the way the community development department did, and I think that the Third Street project in particular, April, and your work on that was kind of some of the key evidence of a different way of looking at these transportation projects as engineers solving engineering problems with engineered solutions. That it was about input from the community, and that kind of boots on the ground insight that was missing before you, April, you and Rafat and Lauren and Bill Guerin and some of those folks have populated the Department of Public Works. So I just want to continue to appreciate that and include that. And finally, just when you mention a tool that's going to prioritize and rank projects, I think that it has to be paired with community input, and that if that you kind of the nuance about what the boots on the ground, the what's going on in your neighborhood, the input from the community, you need the community's support in order to. So I hope that that's in our rush towards artificial intelligence and having machines make decisions for us. I would just caution, scares me when we talk about the tools are, that decision making is based on some assumptions that have been programmed into it, and by having community participation, it brings in all the nuance that's missing from that kind of sort of rational decision making. Those are my comments.
Mark, anything?
You're here.
Yes.
You still have.
Yeah.
Just make sure. Lots of people on. Is it? No, but if you wanted to.
We're flowing over how much work we have to do. And then you are.
That's true.
18. Total of 18.
No, we have, there's 7 people on the team, and we're down 3, so, and.
And all the stones that we have to put on and go through everywhere, it was unbelievable for us, just noticed it, but you guys have to do that.
It's a wet.
I'm very, very appreciative. And I'm just, say, I'm a pedestrian, not much of a bicyclist. So I walk a lot from C Street to downtown a lot. And I must say that again and again that Agent Giro mentioned about that most accidents happen, the vehicle going against opposite direction. what actions happen going against the opposite direction on the crosswalk. So, having that experience that this is happening at every single intersection on C and D, when I walk, when you use the sound, and the car is making left turn when I'm crossing the street, they'll have to watch opposite direction, and they can see me crossing the street, and that scares me very much. And this is a part that I'm still very puzzled and confused. Why now we have a brand new left turn against the opposite direction on what is seen. And this is, to my understanding, Vision Zero standard. And everybody's not looking at the phone. And this really concerns me. Therefore, church from the recent accidents in November 1st, that fatal accidents happened. Should have not. I really want the pedestrian safety is not as important as bicycle safety, because they are very different. Personally, pedestrian safety and bicycle safety is two very different things. I don't need to compare in the details, but you know. So I think this committee really speak up for the students in the public, meaning parents of the kids. You can talk to me, but I'll attend the meeting now and then. So I want you to open up this area. And I was a traffic controller for 10 years at Sun Valley in front of Happy Lane and Fifth. And I've been yelling the cars right there, like, you have to stop. We have to get these cars out of the car that the drop. And people get mad at me. You know, yelling at me, you're doing a horrible job. But every morning, but I've done it for 3-4 years. Once one of the parents, their kids graduated, they're gone. So somebody step up. So at one point I was, okay. And getting yelled at it, but otherwise, that is not moving. We have to follow the vehicles. You can't just start saying, everybody be on the bike, everybody on the walking, from your home to school. Because there's a lot of family like me struggle to the I'm not get on the bike to go to store, take away every day into the groceries. So so I'm sorry that, but I want to open up. This is the BPAC, pedestrian safety. We need to find the people, speak about their frustration. I have 3 neighbors always walk to 3 miles every day through the downtown. They told me the same thing happened to them. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your work. I mean, it's not.
Mark unmuted himself a couple of times. I don't
Oh,
know if he
okay.
wants to say anything.
Mark, did you want to chime in on something?
I wanted to thank April for her presentation. I thought it was very good, very informative. And I agree with Mark's comments in the larger philosophical conversation about the direction of the committee that took place earlier. So I just want to echo your comments. Not with any, not meant to disparage yours at all, Rafa, but just in terms of the committee, right? You got a job. It's bigger than what the committee is. And so you've got to balance it. We don't. We're going to advise to one point of view.
Or you got to balance it in your own way.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, no, our mission is bike and ped. So
But thank you.
Okay,
So a quick question for Sunny. You were concerned about the left turns on C and D Street and walking in the crosswalks. Is there something you could think of that the city or that we could do to keep it safer? Like, are you talking like daylighting and sight lines aren't good enough around some of the intersections or like what?
It's combination of every tangent now colliding. Yeah, because now a lot of kids, I yell at them, get the hands on when they cross the street. And David Persily, who did the research for all the safety crosswalk, he said that actually injury accidents increased. And he said he didn't know why, even though they put more bulb outs and everything. I flat out, I see it. So many people on the phone. We cannot get everybody take their phone off of their hand. To me, C and D need to be go one way. Even though you have to go circle around the block, that's safer because you have 2 lanes. You are making a left turn from C going north to D 4th Street. You could see it, the pedestrians crossing. But if you are 2-way, you are away from that crosswalk. And I have to do the drawings of it. Can see it when there's cars opposite direction coming down, and also you are watching the cars in front of you trying to make a left turn. There's so many tangents. Unless everybody's automatic driving, like the AI, we can visually see everything, equally what's happening. So it's simple as that. And I think something I noticed it, me living and driving the road and walking the road last 24 years. And exclusively last 12 years, taking my kids to school, volunteering, going to library all the time, and walking downtown. I do a lot of businesses to try to support them. And I realized that when I bought the C Street, now each intersection, I stop and it's red. Now I'm waiting for the one car in front of me trying to make a left. If there's a green light, I cannot go past it because now it's a 1-lane. And now I'm waiting another car making a right turn at their green light, but there's people crossing each side. That's the east side of the crosswalk. And they have to wait until them to finish walking, then they make a right turn. At that point, I'm already twice green lights. I couldn't go further across the street. And this is, to me, I'm like, this is just driving. I planned ahead, extra 10 minutes, but people struggling to get their work done, or living going with their own vehicle. I felt for them, especially working families. And I know the lady who works 2 jobs, picking up kids and rushing to home and go back to work. They are frustrated. A lot of moms and dads too. So I don't know how many times do you go grocery shopping and cooking dinner?
I do all the shopping. and cooking at my house. I also live on D Street and I'm a driver and I'm a cyclist and I walk with my little kids all the time to park sites. Yeah, so I'm walking.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a much larger, more complicated. Yeah, I think there's a lot of pluses and minuses to different, and so maybe that's something we could, I don't know if there's a.
Moms are barely living in a way. They felt left out. Like they're not present. Like they're ignored. And that's something, I don't know what to say. I just say, go to the meeting and speak. Oh, dinner time, I'm getting dinner at the table. It's 6 o'clock.
Right.
So, I mean, that's simply, I could just. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a hard work.
It's
You cannot make everybody.
there's a lot of trade-offs, and yeah. So, no, I appreciate you bringing it up. The only thing we have left here is this was initially brought up at the last meeting is housekeeping was the time of future BPAC meetings. I guess at some point someone had proposed that it be shifted from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And I'm yeah, personally, I don't have any real strong feeling one way or the other, and I think I'm inclined to suggest that if there's no strong push to shift it to 7, that we keep it where it is. But I'd be interested in hearing what other committee members have to say about it.
Honestly, I don't really care. So it's not helpful, but I'm okay with 6 PM personally, so but I'm not gonna die on that hill too, I can do 7. So
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Should we ask for public comment?
Um,
I don't know how this got on the agenda to go to 7. I'm
Yeah,
happy with
I-
anything, but I'm happy
Right.
for public comment if someone could give some convincing.
Maybe we can hear from Mark before we go to public comments, just kind of.
For the sake of brevity, I'd just say, let's take a straw vote and see whether this is an issue or not. And we might be able to dispense with it in 30 seconds.
I mean, I think we'd all, pretty clearly, we'd all vote for 6 o'clock now, but we're wondering if there's like any public input, but I don't know maybe Nat could answer like how did this even get on the agenda? Was somebody pushing for 7? Was it a committee member or was it a member of the public? You know? Why don't we open it up to the member? Can we, well, your chair.
Yes, no, I mean, if there's, is there, I don't know if there's anyone who's online who has a feeling about why the meeting should be changed and what the reason would be, it would be helpful to hear that.
And now that the meetings are in person, that's another consideration that gets into this.
Although the hybrid format is going to be retained, right? This is
Yes,
not-
the
yeah.
hybrid, but
So there will be the option of participating online.
Just confident to 7 o'clock. I know it's, I'm informed, right, but a 50% space, that was amazing. I would, in-person meeting with that is like, more, would be handled much better in here. If it's 7 o'clock, we just start. We need to get the microwave dinner and then I rush over here. But I mean, I'm not.
I go to bed early, I'd vote 6.
Yeah, no,
Unless someone had some
Yeah.
strong opinion that I'm
Right.
not hearing,
And
I'm
I think-
willing to go back.
And this is something that can always be brought back if there is compelling, I would just hate to keep switching the time
Yeah.
around. So if there's not a compelling reason to change it, I would support.
I think it's
keeping it
easier
where it
for
is.
staff too, and stay when it's late. I mean, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
It's never done. But today is.
Okay, so do we want to,
But if you wanted to change it. we would
Right.
Feel.
right, okay. So it sounds like you're in favor
Yeah.
of 6. I mean, I guess I'd say
I
I'm in
think
favor.
someone pointed out last time that, was it Parks and Recs? Like the meeting was at 7 or something? I don't know
All
how
at
that was
different
done.
times.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in favor of keeping it at 6.
Okay. Mark, do you want to weigh in one way or the other?
Just to be the contrarian, I'll vote for 7. I want to see what the final vote is.
Well, that means we're not unanimous. Oh.
No, it's not unanimous.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll say,
I'm willing to amend my vote, so it's a unanimous, report it in the record as unanimous.
Okay, so for at least for the time being going forward, we'll keep our meetings at 6. I think we normally have an item on here for items for upcoming agendas, which I'm not seeing on here. And I know a number of things have come up that we said that we wanted to have on there. So I just wanted to kind of recap a few things. I just have a few things on my list and people can feel free to chime in. I think I wanted to start with the item that Warren Wells brought up at the beginning, which is something I've been thinking about as well, is to provide some sort of updates on the status of the bike ped master plan. And even if that's just in the form of a brief memo or tracking sheet or something to council saying, you know, these are our priorities, these are things we've accomplished. I think it's a great opportunity for staff to toot your own horn. You know, show that we are getting where we want to go. So I would like to see that on an upcoming agenda. We can talk about how, you know, how and when to do that.
Can I add to that a little bit? You know, I think we do have a good master plan. And in that master plan, as Warren said, there's some tracking milestones in the master plan. I actually, it came to my attention when I opened up my in-person binder that I haven't used since I was last here, and found those status tracking milestones. And one of our last in-person meetings, actually, Kate Powers really suggested starting to track like where we should be in each thing. And we did that on a couple of ones. It was agendized in one of our meetings that we did that. And so my recommendation is to form a little subcommittee that we as a BPAC could form a subcommittee and get together and look at the tracking status pages in that website and see where we think we are. And as we're talking about it, I thought about that this week and have started that progress, which is what you see there.
Okay.
So my idea would be a subcommittee, and when Kate first presented it, it was the idea for us to keep on track, like, because, you know, we said we'd do these things. And I think that would be really helpful to see where we are in this plan, which is a good plan, and we're not gonna have a new one for a couple more years. So as a subcommittee, I think that would be helpful. I think you know, maybe the input that I would want is from the two of you and from city council, if they would find that help. You know, it says in here that we should present this to city council. And do you think they would find that helpful? Do you think it's?
If you want my opinion, a subcommittee will help staff actually, if many members are willing to roll up their sleeves and jump into developing that and even presenting it to the council. I mean, I think it's a good exercise to go through and see where we are, and we'll provide you with all the information as far as, I mean, you know, what's been done in the last few years. And so I think it's a good focus grabbing opportunity to
Before we jump to going to council, one of the things that we've been asked from the director level, who's oversees committees, is there is a liaison to council. So if there is 1 or 2 meetings a year that we would like them to attend to, that would be a good one to do that at. And so I feel like that should be the first step.
Mhm.
And then if it's decided to present something bigger at council, or maybe it goes in with the CIP, or maybe if we get this grant, you know, like then we present it. But I think that's a good first step, is trying to figure out what's a good meeting that we want that council person to be at.
So I guess maybe my proposal would be that we form a subcommittee. I would hope that I would be one that would be on that.
That can be arranged.
And then someone else, and maybe even for our next meeting, invite our you know, see if our liaison was there and get it together. And I think what really needs to be done is just for the committee to go together and see what we think. And then, you know, there has been a lot of progress that has not been part of our master plan. You know, there's been a lot of good things going on, like everything on 3rd Street, you know, things that we didn't even dream of at the time that are really good, and include some of that into. And I think it paints a pretty holistic picture of where we're at and where we followed the last plan that we have before we get the next one.
I would suggest not the next one, so that the subcommittee could talk and then maybe meet with someone from staff, be like, you know,
Right.
actually, there's a
It's
few
only-
more
It's only 1
things,
month.
and kind of vet it out.
I mean, I've done it. So we could just-
actually, the next meeting is gonna be very lengthy.
Okay.
You know,
So
just,
August.
just
Sure, yeah.
Great. Especially with all the things we're
So
working on.
do I have any volunteers that to join me on that subcommittee? Maybe
You
some
know-
that have a full bunch of experience and time on the committee that remembers things also.
As long as it's not for the next meeting, I'm happy to join with you. Okay. Okay. As far as future agenda items, I guess there were a couple of upcoming things. I'm not sure if it's anything that needs to be on the agenda yet, but we had talked about like the Trails and Open Space Master Plan and Vision Zero, and I'm just not sure if there's going to be things to report back on those at this point.
Maybe
I would like to see AB 43 put on as a discussion item. And actually, I'd also like to see something that I've been thinking about for a long time is I would like to see, I'm hoping the city would be interested in revisiting its bike parking requirements. Because one of the things that Centerville and many other cities that I've seen do is they peg the required bike parking as a percentage of vehicle parking. And it's like, especially with the passage of AB 2097, which prohibits parking minimums near transit. If we're reducing vehicle parking, it means we're going to be reducing bike parking, which is not exactly what we want to be doing. So I think, what I've seen, there are other cities that have adopted requirements that peg the number of bike parking spaces to square footage of whether it's land use type and things like that. And I think the city would be better served by doing that. And if we can kind of get out ahead of people, taking advantage of no minimum parking requirements, then we can stay out ahead of the curve on that.
That's like goals and objectives needs to be brought up to council. Because if that's changing a policy, not to say that, I think that is a great idea. I'm just wondering if that needs to be part of their goals and objectives.
I think that's, yeah, maybe. I mean, I'd like to check with CDD on it as to how did they do it in the housing element. Maybe the housing element had required parking for bicyclists as well. So, I mean, you just need to be inclusive when we put that requirement in. That it's a very good point. And then Fifth Avenue. Fifth Avenue is there. And Frida's is naturally on. And I take it that these recommendations or suggestions, that doesn't mean that we have all these items on June 7th.
Right. It was,
Okay.
yeah.
Just want to
It's like
make sure.
Yeah, no, I know if some things are more time sensitive than others.
Yeah.
And then I know you indicated you'd want to bring us the upcoming grant proposal for comment, right?
Okay, that's you.
Okay, no, it sounds like we're already full. So that's
Better
good.
than the list though.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not, like you said, some things will be pushed back a bit. That's fine. Just wanted to get it out there.
Okay.
Whenever possible, I find it really helpful to get presentations beforehand, so I can research beforehand. Seems that's very work in progress. I know I wrote about it too, but.
You're assuming the presentation was done.
I have work all the time.
We'll give it to you when we're done with it.
I know. This year.
Noted.
Okay.
Only 2 minutes late for an in-person meeting.
All right, it's not too bad. Okay, well, thank you for those of you who are still on the line. Appreciate your participation and look forward to seeing you in person one of these days, and great to see all you in person and getting back to some semblance of normalcy. And we'll adjourn the meeting until 6 p.m. on Wednesday, June 7th.
See you in a month. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.